Hey YouTube, what's going on? Today we are going to unbox and we're going to review and compare rubberworks Evil Dead Rise Necronomicon replica to existing replicas from the Knights of Samaria that I have worked on. So without any ado whatsoever, let's take a look at the book.
Behold, my stuff.
Alrighty, so this is the rubberworks Evil Dead Rise Necronomicon. It's got this kind of cool little, I don't know, logo, I guess. It's the Evil Dead font. Comes with this big whole thing on the back here. You can read all this. So you can see it says the art contributor is Monsters Inc. Of course, we know that they took the artwork from Elder Props, so no credit given to Elder Props for their free files. Makes a fun thing like this is all a 1981 thing, but we all know that Evil Dead Rise came out recently. And it's got this cellophane wrap on it, so let's just get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. And so this is slipped into that. Flip it around to the front. Same thing, this is slipped into that. Nothing too fancy about it. Comes with a nice leather tie, although I think it's imitation leather. But either way, it's fun. I'll save it. Use it for another project, I'm sure. And it's actually roped into it. I wonder if this is legit glued in. Feels like it is. Yeah, we'll leave it there for now. Okay, so size-wise, cover looks to be about, it's a little smaller than 10 by 12. It's not quite the size of AVED, although, well, actually, it's probably close to the size of AVED, but it's not quite the size of AOD. But we'll go downstairs and see how it compares to AOD. It's very, very thick. The black is very generic in sort of places. Some bubbling and things like that. General casting flaws, but not surprising there. Nothing too crazy anyway. There's an interesting little like skull Cthulhu on the spine, which is kind of cool. Back is much the same as the front. It's got these three little boils here. I'll have to see if that's a thing or if that's something else. There doesn't appear to be the sculptor's name anywhere. And then we've got the teeth. These actually look really good. They're not super flimsy or anything. They're plastic. But overall, you can tell they're put in secondarily, and they look nice. They seem to be in varied spaces and things like that. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's see the thickness. So, interesting take on the spine. It looks like there's a spine that has a cover on it, and then another spine. So it looks like there's two. There's some gaps which we will go in and fill, and that, of course, is to help close the actual book. That's why there's some gaps. Again, I can fix all that. Same up top. Little leather strip. This could just be superfluous, superficial stuff to cover the binding that they did. You can see there's a float bind, and that there's also a glue bind. So there's a glue bind, and then they used a float bind to stick it in there, which is nice. It's a good method. I like it. So overall, this looks pretty good. We'll do a quick open. Oh, that's stiff. All right. So the seams are pretty perfect. 45-degree angles. Nice. And you can see the float bind is basically what I use for Tom's strip bind. So here to here. So those of you who wonder who else does the same way I do the Evil Dead 2 books, that's who else. Not the way I do my AVEDs. I do full pieces for the AVEDs, but all the toms look like that. Weight of the paper, 67-pound cardstock. I don't think it's 110. It's waterlogged, so the staining is done with a lot of liquidity. It's not really done with a lot of blending, and so you get a very watered look. So it makes you get the impression that this thing was dunked in mud at some point. It does not give the illusion of aging. And then, of course, we have the classic streaks. Blend your streaks, guys. So somebody just literally took probably the same stain that I use and just without dabbing and blending. As you refer to my videos, blend, don't dab, don't swish. Next, we have Wands pages. So this is our Elder Prop pages. Done exactly what I did, which is make them red. They're very stiff, so we're gonna have to go in and loosen these up a little bit. And now you can go in and see that they also, not only did they glue bind, but they stitch bound. Which means these are done in groupings. So overall, we're going to go through and we're going to see that all Wands pages are here. I already know that. And that looks very, very nice. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And at some point, we're going to kick into other pages. So let's see what we bounce into after we get through Wands. So we go through. They're very chunky. They're very old. They make a nice sound. Let's get through all these. Some of the ones that we know from. Now, are the ones on the right, and the ones on the left? I don't know. I haven't gone through and really taken a hard look at that. But let's see if we can get back to where... All right, so this is where Wands end. Here's Wands page. I wonder, is that right side up or upside down? Let's see, is the other side? It seems fine. So this is obviously a Sullivan page. So this will start the section of the book that is no longer Rise. I probably would have gone just straight 2013 pages in red after this, but I'm sure... Yeah, so these are DVD pages. Ugh, with the DVD bullshit. I will probably end up ripping these out and replacing these. I detest these pages, but I have to say, overall, I mean, that just looks so cartoony compared to what we are just looking at. That is just hideous. Yeah, so these are DVD pages. These are probably going to come out, and I'll probably just put another set of Rise pages on the back end of it. Here's where it comes a little interesting. So this is AOD. And Juan made these pages based off of shots that I had done on mine. And so this is a standard Tremblay, which is the template that all the other Sullivans were put into for the AOD. So there's a little AOD in there. And now we get into what I think I would have gone right into, which is the 2013 imagery. So now the gentleman who drew these for the 2013 drew most of the pages and the artwork for the Rise book. So, and then of course the AVED team did a bulk of it. But yeah, so these I think work, even though these are printing press and the other ones are handwritten and hand drawn. But that's all right. So we're gonna have all of Juan's 2013 imagery. So this actually works pretty well. I would have kept that further up to the front. And we get through all that. This is what they chose to be the last page. Then we have a blank page on the back, which is part of the float. And you can see again, there's a blank page, which I think wraps around the whole thing. And then there's a float page. And then we're back to this. And again, what is going on with this? This is what I don't get. This, I don't know why this is in here. Take this out. Get that out of there. And it closes up. But that, I mean, look, when if you're doing like a fan film or something like that, or you're going to display it, you're going to open it up to a classic page and leave it open, or you're going to leave it closed. And most of the time, nobody's going to care what the entire book has. So is it the worst thing in the world that it has those DVD pages? Not at all. Does it bother the shit out of me? Of course it bothers the shit out of me, but I'm me. You can see again with the spine, there's some latex just sort of looped through it to cover. I don't know if they built this onto a real book and they're just trying to cover that. Does appear that that's the case. Why don't we go downstairs and see how big this is compared to other necronomicons? All right, so this is a Percolations 10 by 12 AOD, which houses 8.5 by 11 pages. This is the Rise book, and as you can see, it's about 10, but it's not quite 12. Let's see how it compares to a Patron. Get the fuck out of here. Let's go up to my... No. So I can take this down without breaking everything. All right, so let's take a look. So here's it next to a Patron, exact same height as a Patron, but it's not going to be as long as one. I can tell that already. So a little smaller lengthwise than a Patron, but same height. So this is going to be a little taller than an Aved, and a little, probably the same width as an Aved. So let's take a look at what I was talking about with pages. Here's a set, just a rough set of wands pages, unweathered, just sort of hanging out. And so you can see they're the same. Let's see how they compare size-wise. So what this is a standard set of 8.5 by 11, torn up and brought down to size. And it's not quite the size. So that means it's close. It's pretty close size-wise, so not too bad. Overall, I think they used just regular 8.5 by 11, and then they probably printed these as large as they could, and then tore off the excess to make it just a little smaller, which is what most people do with full bleed pages, like wands. But the pure artwork of wands pages, you can see they're the same. So, first page, let's just go and compare. And I think they just took these, excuse me, I think they took these and just did literally the same order that Juan put them in his DL file. So not much effort into, and I kind of knew that's what they were going to do, but neither here nor there. So as you can see, the exact same thing. So Juan's Elder Props files are what fill these books. I'm sure everybody knows that by now, but Juan gets no credit. But again, that's all because, thank you, Juan, for giving out free files. A lot of people make money off of your files. I'm not one of them, but Rubberworks clearly is. How does this compare thickness-wise to some of the other Necros? It's thick like an 82. So this is much stiffer, and I don't know if it's because it's so caked in acrylic paint. It has an extremely painted look. So if you look at how I acrylic paint and you look at how they acrylic paint, this does not have quite the same look. So I'm probably going to revisit this and repaint this. This needs a little bit of love in a couple ways. The sculpt is good. I like the veins. I love the teeth. I think they did great with the teeth. I couldn't have done the teeth any better than that. But if you look at like the thickness of an 82, it's a big, thick, chunky book. So it has a great look to it. Let's see how it looks. Give me 1 second. I'm going to put it up on my shelf. All right, so on the shelf, you can see sitting next to AOD 2013, ED2, Brett's ED1, which I call the ED1, Jesper's ED1, Peyton Patron's Burn book. That's not a bad lineup right there. It looks a lot more like leather on the spine than it looks like leather on the front, but that looks really nice sitting there. So not too shabby. I go a lot more for the flesh tone look and the more the sullivated look, but not a bad look at all. So overall, what is the verdict on the Rubberworks Evil Dead Rise book? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being hot glue, one color paint, and Juan's pages printed in black and white, waterlogged with tea, versus 10 being, let's say, my Aved. Call me biased, but I think it's the best Necro ever made. I would say that Evil Dead Rise probably falls, I'm going to say it's a solid 8.5, 9. I think that if you bought your ED Rise, you would be hard pressed to find somebody make a better Rise. I might have taken the whole first few sets of what they did and just kept it going and just done the 2013s in red and taken out those DVD pages. They lose points for the DVD pages with me. They always will. But I think the cover's sculpted good. It looks exactly like what it's supposed to look like. The paint job leaves something to be desired, but it's not bad. It's got multiple colors. It's got multiple shades to it. I think it could use a little bit of love. So I am going to repaint it, but I think the spine looks great. I think it sits on the shelf well. It's nice. It's thick. It's durable. Hopefully it's mixed well and it's a strong enough compound that's not going to rot. But I think the cover is a solid 10. Really, I do, because you can repaint it to your liking, but you can't re-sculpt it, really. So sculpt is good. It opens and closes good. It's attached well. It's bound really well. I give them a solid 10 on the binding. Well done. The weathering is a 5. And I say that because it just reeks of amateur hour. It looks like, again, somebody just took wet and made the pages wet. There's no thought process for how pages look when they're old or how they get old and what mold looks like. Waterlogged pages look like waterlogged pages. It looks like you dunked the book in mud. But I can't do anything about that unless I want to rip out all the damn pages and put my own in. Will I do that? Maybe. Do I feel the need to? No. I think that if you're a page snob like me, it's going to be the irkiest thing about it. Having said that, will 99.9% of all other people flip out and think they're the most gorgeously weathered, wonderful pages of all time? Yeah, probably. So I think 99.9% of all people who buy the Rise book will think they basically have a screen use prop, and they'll be thrilled. And for price point, can't complain. 100% endorse this book as a product you can be proud and happy to own. It is a solid replica, and it's really cool. I am good with this. I do want to thank my man Rufus for hooking me up with this, because I don't know that I would have bit the bullet and gotten it on my own. I probably would have been stubborn and just tried to make my own in a year or two when I eventually get done with my books. So having somebody shoot one over to me to actually get my hands on, look at, see how it sits on the shelf, really cool. Appreciate that. And, you know, heart goes out to you, buddy. I love talking books with you, and I really appreciate you putting this in my hands so I could review it. Man, I got to tell you, I think that I've seen their other books and they leave something to be desired. But the Rise was such a easier book to tackle in terms of a sculpt and things like that, that I feel like they did a good job really nailing the feel of the Rise book. But where they really knocked it out of the park was the teeth. I think they crushed it with the teeth, and that is the thing that really sets off the book. And even though I disagree with the type of weathering they use, particularly on those thick pages, I would have sanded them and made them floppier because it's such a thick paper. The book closed really has a nice profile and a gorgeous color to it. And closed, sitting on your shelf, that book looks phenomenal. And there are enough Rise pages from one that no matter pretty much where you open it to, you're going to see a nice solid set of Rise pages. I think people will be happy with it. I highly recommend picking it up, sanding the pages down one at a time, getting them a little floppy, a little loose, crinkling, sanding around the edges. You know how I do. And maybe consider gutting it and printing your own set like I did, and reblending and redoing it and just making a nice floopsier set. But if you're not going to do that, I think you're good as is. I really do. I think you could be good as is. And I really, you know, like I said, I'm a bit of a book snob, as you saw. That's what I do. And so I'm that guy who's just going to nitpick the crap out of a book. But in terms of something that anybody can go out and buy, I think you'd be super happy with this book. So I give it a solid 8.59 in terms of Necros. Again, you lose points for the DVD pages because I hate that crap. I think that they should have credited Elder Props because it is Juan's artwork that they're using. They credited Monster Inc., but that ain't Juan. And you need to give credit where credit is due, so you lose points by not crediting where you got your pages from, even though we all know where you got them from. So on that level, slap on the wrist, shame on you. You need to be upfront with where you got your stuff, because they did the heavy lifting for you. Because no matter how good you are at sculpting a cover, you're nothing without pages, and you need to give credit where credit's due for pages. And if you're using the free ones that Juan's putting out there, then and making money off of it, the very least you can do is tell everybody, we took Juan's pages. And so I'm doing it for you since you didn't do it, Rubberworks. And that's all you do is take Juan's pages. You even got a couple of mine in there, you bastards, and I don't like that. But I'm not going to bust your balls about it. I'm just going to make sure everybody knows that you took them. So for what you did do, I give you all the credit in the world. It looks great folded. It sits well. It's got a nice profile. It's got a nice thickness. It's got a bit of a professional to it. I'm probably going to take out those extra little overlap pieces of rubber latex and zhuzh. We're going to zhuzh. But very minimal tweaks to make that look solid. It's a great book. I think if you're going to buy anything from the Rubberworks line, this is the only one that I'd endorse. I think it looks great. They finally got one that I think they really nailed it. But I think, like I said, more than half of it being nailed is Juan's gorgeous artwork that he contributed. And I could go pull out the vinyl record and show those pages next to what Juan did, and you could see how much of what he did is there. But they could have done more with those pages. Instead of just downloading the file, grabbing, hitting Control-I and sliding the color scheme over so that it's all colorized red, they could have actually gone in, done some brush work, done some hues and some tones and livened it up a little bit, or done that by hand like I was planning to do with that set that I had printed. They just straight up printed red pages and then dunked it in brown stain, and they stained the crap out of it. And it looks like they didn't really do any blending, blotching, anything like that. So there's really no love in the weathering process. There's no texturizing. There's a lot of streak marks, which I hate. And so those things kind of irk me. But those things kind of reek of, okay, congratulations, you found step 1 of page weathering. Now it's time to take the next 10 and get to a point where you're not just doing excess, but you have a subtlety that just screams authentic. And that's the kind of weathering that you see in the film itself. It's very, very much something that just reeks of old Franciscan monk pages. It has this really just decayed, yellowed awfulness to it. You're like, is that paper? Is that parchment? Is that lambskin? I don't even know. That's something that, you look at old Quran, you look at old Bibles, and you look at old Torah and things like that, and you get that kind of feeling for it. It's great. So I do feel that the pages, they do their job. Better closed than open, but it can be fixed and it can be worked on. And I plan to do some of it myself to try to deal with that. But in the end, if I really wanted to make this book perfect, I would keep the sculpt. I would keep the teeth. I would rip out the center, and I'd print my own set of Juan's pages, do my own thing to them, and put them in, maybe print 4 to 5 copies bound up and put them in so that it repeats. And maybe I'd throw the 2013s in just for shits and giggles. But in general, that's what I would do. This is great, though. In all truth, I'm being extremely nitpicking right now, but in terms of I'm going to go on Etsy and buy a book, or I'm going to go to rubberworks.com and buy a book, you'll be happy with this. If you really liked Rise, you'll like this. If you just kind of like an old, leathery, gnarly looking book, you'll like this. It's got character. It's got good feel to it. It sits well next to the AOD of Patron, which I think is the best AOD sculpt ever done. It sits well next to Jack Malone's 2013. It sits well next to the Sully lineage, and very few books sit well next to the ED1. But I think in general it's a pretty solid offering, and I like I said, I do endorse. I do think it's a nice 8.5 out of 10. So where I don't endorse Rubberworks because they're shady and they don't give credit where credit's due, I do give endorsement, and if you own it, I ain't mad at you. And I'm certainly not ashamed to sit there and say, no, I'm not really supportive of Rubberworks in terms of just stealing pages and not telling everybody they did that. But I am supportive of the final product and saying, you put together a damn good Necro. You really did. And, could I get with Kurt and come up with a better Necro? Maybe. I mean, would Kurt's cover be better? Sure. Of course it would. He's an amazing sculptor. But is it worth it now, considering how good that cover is, to do one? No. I could be tempted to do the pages well into the future, if I really wanted to. But I feel like this is good enough that I'm good. I'm gonna let that sit. That's my Rise. Will I repaint it? Yeah, probably. I have to. I have to repaint it. I always do. It's so caked with acrylic. I don't know if I'm going to strip it first. I may just try to dry brush it, do some accenting, and just try to make the sculpt pop a little more than it is. We'll see. I don't know. I'm definitely going to hit it with a matte clear coat to start and take some of that gloss off. We're going to see how it goes. Because again, this is leather, and yes, I do think there's a shine to leather, but in the movie, it did not shine. It wasn't shiny leather. It wasn't tan treated, leather like that. So we need to change that. But yes, thank you guys for checking out this breakdown of the rubberworks Evil Dead Rise Necronomicon and how it kind of compares to some of the other Necros that are out there. Like I said, Juan's pages are everywhere, but when you print them in red, they really do give a nice kick to a book. And if you do weather the pages, they can look very nice. And if you really take the time and energy, you can make them look great. So thanks, Juan, for making those available to everybody who can't afford to make their own, like me. Well, I mean, I can make my own. That's what I mean. I mean, everybody who's not me. I spend years making pages. So, but overall, like I said, if you're gonna do pages, make sure you give credit where credit's due, especially when you're doing your own. Make sure you tell everybody, yeah, I made these. And if you didn't, tell them where you got them. Be a man, say so, or a lady, or they, them, whatever. Be a person and just be a decent person and give credit where credit's due. So, Rubberworks owes Juan a big check, in my opinion. But Juan, it looks great in a book. It looks great in a real cover. You're a master of your craft, as always. I appreciate what you do for the bookmaking community, specifically the Evil Dead side of it. Appreciate you, bro. And in terms of Rubberworks, like I said, I'm not your biggest fan in the world for stealing pages and not telling people, but in terms of this book, kudos. You did a good job. So thanks, guys. Thanks for checking out. Thank you, Rufus, and to all the Knights of Samaria out there who are continuing to endeavor to keep that group going. I appreciate you. I did step down as the head of the Knights of Samaria group. I'm not running that group anymore. I'm still in it, but I'm not running it. I have too much shit going on in my life, and I barely have time to do anything. I also have a new puppy, and so I have to keep an eye on the... Speak of the devil, there he is. I got to go get him. So I just want to take 2 minutes to review this book and tell everybody thank you. It's been a while since I've done a prop video really of someone else's with a nice long breakdown to it, and I definitely haven't done anything Evil Dead in a while. So that's kind of what's going on. Thanks everybody for checking out this video, and like I said, keep tuned. We got some stuff coming down the line. If you don't recognize that pattern, you might recognize this. We have some stuff coming down the way, and it's going to be a good time. So as for me, I got to go mow my front lawn and paint a door. So if you can't build it, buy it. If you can't buy it, then build it. But every once in a while, if you do both, it's pretty solid.